Addiction itself, it destroys everything it touches. There is a darkness. Their world is dark. And they could be in a room full of people like this and they would feel completely alone. And hope is rather hard to come by when it comes to the life of an addict. Believe me, I know. Unfortunately, the beginning of my story is a brutal one. And I'm the guy who, my poor family, and I think about them, I'm the guy who, if I came knocking on your door, you'd put the chain on the door first before you opened it up to see what I wanted. That's who I was. Unfortunately, because of addiction, I stole from everyone. My poor mom, and what she and my family had to endure is, it's just epic and it's brutal. And it took quite some time for me to repair it. And I could tell 1,000 stories about the things that I did and the life of an addict and where it takes us. Now, keep in mind, I come from a regular middle-class family. My dad's a fireman, my mom's a secretary, my brothers and sisters all went on to go to college, and they did really well for themselves, and they would all look at me and say, what is wrong with you? You know, I'm that kid, I'm the black sheep that you hear about. And so May wanted me to tell you guys, and it just embodies, and if anybody who doesn't understand the life of an addict, I'm gonna just share with you the last year and a half of my life before I found recovery. The last year and a half of my life before I found recovery looked like this. You know how normally people would come home, and someone's calling me right now in the middle of my talk. Thank you very much. You know how people, you'll come home from a day out at work or doing whatever you do, and you'll just envision walking into your house and hanging up your jacket and putting your groceries away, and you're putting things in the cabinets. For me, a typical day was, everyone had kicked me out. I wasn't allowed in my parents' house anymore. I wasn't allowed in my sister's house anymore. The only person who would allow me to stay with them was my older brother. And my brother Sean was he was the last one. That was my last bastion that I could, of support. And so he worked on the tugboats and he was never home. And so I had the place completely to myself almost constantly. And so a typical day for me would be, and this is where addiction took me, I would walk home into my house and I would go into the back bedroom and I would put all of my the drugs that I bought. And for me, my drug was cocaine, and I would put all the cocaine that I had, and I would buy the cheapest, biggest bottles of alcohol. At that point, it was rum, and I would go put that in the back bedroom, and I would have a handful of pills because I knew I would need Valium and stuff to crash me down, because it's the life of an addict. It's the ups, it's the downs, and it's a lifestyle. And that's one of the other things that I really like to always make sure I get across to people. If you don't understand addiction, the reason places like this are so important and necessary, you come in and you're removed, the alcohol's removed from you, the drug addiction is removed, the poison is taken out of your system. You're not, by any stretch of the imagination, done. You're not cured. There is no cure for addiction that I've ever heard of. All you've done is now you're at the beginning, not the end. You don't leave rehab cured of it. It is a lifestyle. And my lifestyle was such, this seemed normal to me. This was an everyday occurrence for a year and a half. And I would get my booby trap box out, and I'm not even high yet. I'm just preparing for the high. And I would go around and booby trap my entire home. I would put that box had sheets that perfectly covered every window. It had bottles that I would put on every single doorknob, so if anybody turned it during the night, because they might come looking, it would drop a bottle on the floor and I would hear it. I had towels that were rolled perfectly up that would go under every single door. And I would now go around my house and I would booby trap my house. I'm not even high yet. Nothing has even occurred, but I'm preparing for it because it's my lifestyle. And after I got in every door barred and I had mops that I would lean against doors, legit booby trap the hell out of my house, I would eventually find myself into my back bedroom and I'd bar the door with a chair and I would sit there alone with no TV, no radio, because you gotta listen. And I would sit there alone, sometimes for 2 or 3 days at a time, doing drugs and drinking alcohol until I couldn't do drugs or drink alcohol anymore. And then I would pop a handful of Valium, pass out for 20 hours, wake up, and go do the whole thing all over again. And the end of my story, that's where it took me. And I lived that way without very much variance for almost a year and a half, every single day, day in, day out, week in and week out. And that became my lifestyle. You think going into just a detox and removing the drugs from my system over the course of a few days or a week is gonna cure that? And so my experience was that, in fact, it doesn't. The most dangerous time in the world for an alcoholic or an addict is when they leave their treatment facility, whichever one, wherever you found yourself, and you find yourself on the outside, and you're free for the first time. You're not locked away, and that's a very dangerous time frame for people like us. That's where the devil and the angel have their battle. Now, one of the famous sayings that you'll hear in the rooms, if you've ever gone for aftercare and 12-step recovery rooms, one of the famous sayings that they use all the time is, don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happens. And they say that to newcomers, and they say it to people over and over and over again, don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happens. Well, where is this miracle? How do you create the miracle? Where do I find the miracle? Because I needed a miracle. And where do you find that? Now, it's different for everybody. My experience has shown me, and my experience has told me that we all find the miracle in a different place and in a different way. But I'm going to tell you where I found my miracle. So now, picture me leaving Bailey Seton Detox, and picture me with the devil and the angel, and I'll get back to that to wrap things up. But I'm on the front stairs of that detox, not wanting to ever use again, and I don't ever want to go back to that insane lifestyle. And then the other side of me is wondering, if anybody's around and who's at the bar, and who I might be able to call to hang out with. And that kind of a battle is one that addicts face when they leave treatment all the time, and it's a brutal thing. And so for me, fast forward, this was my miracle. When does the miracle come? And this is what it came for me. I had gone to a 12-step recovery program. My counselors had got me excited and interested in the idea of a replacement lifestyle, and so I did that. And I went and threw myself into it. I found myself in it, and then I threw myself into it. And with proper guidance, I started sponsoring people, and I started doing the things that we do, and I involved myself in this lifestyle, and it was absolutely incredible. And you hit peaks and valleys the way we all do in our life. And so for me, at one point, I was feeling disconnected from it all. But I'm still dangerous because I'm still an addict. And I had hit in kind of a dark spot. And one of the people who helped me on the outside, and one of my sponsors, had said to me, part of the program of recovery is that you have to go out and make all your amends, and you have to repair the damage done in your past. That's part of building back to a real life. And you haven't done that. And I'd gone out and taught all my family. I sat down with everyone who was important. And he said, no, you haven't done it all, because I know for a fact you have a few left. And there was a few things that I had never covered. And this speaks to us and what goes on inside of us. I had one particular thing that I had done when I was a child. And I was 11. There was no addiction in my life at this point. And I don't know if anybody knows, a lot of stuff traces back to your childhood, and it's a whole other conversation that we can have. But for me, I had stolen. When I was an 11-year-old boy, I was a paper boy on Staten Island, New York, and I delivered the Staten Island Advance. And I had stolen from one of my customers. I went to they were the nicest people on my paper route, and they were the best tippers. And so naturally, who would you steal from? The nicest, best tippers in the route. And so I went, and I double collected, and I lied to the husband, and I lied to the wife. And I'm double collecting for 2 weeks, and I thought no, it was a mistake. And I just made up some story. And of course, being sharp as a bowling ball, I stole from the same customer twice in 3 weeks. It's insane. But both times they said, no problem, Richard, and they gave me the money. And now when I came into early recovery, they're telling me make a list of all the people that you've harmed in your past, and you've got to go out and now try and set these things right as a part of your process, my aftercare process. And so I said, all right. And so I didn't do it because it was ridiculous. $4. That's gonna put me over the top. A $4 amends from stealing when I was a paperboy is what's gonna deliver me from my addiction. And my sponsor said it doesn't matter. The point is not whether or not those people, I told them they're never gonna live there, they'd never recognize me. I gave through all these reasons why it's only $4. My sponsor said it doesn't matter. What matters is the sound of willingness. And that's one of the things to try and get to some of the addicted population, the sound of willingness. And the sound of willingness is this. At that point in my sobriety, the sound of willingness was me knocking on a door to willing to go to any lengths to get beyond where I was for my addiction. And so I went and took the stupid envelope, and they made me put $20 in it, not $4 for interest, net interest over the years. And so I put $20 in the envelope, and I went to these people's house. And I go and I knock on the door, and I knock really lightly, because if they don't answer, I'll just stick it in the mailbox and get the hell out of there. And so I knock lightly on the door, and sure enough, the door opens up, and they still live there. And there she is, and I recognize her right away. And I'm looking up at this lady, like the little paper boy in me is looking, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they still live here. And she literally looks up and goes, oh my God, it's Richie Hession, the paper boy. And I'm like, no way. Like, they recognize me, right? So I'm like, oh, hi, Miss D, how are you? And I said, listen. She goes, come in. And I said, no, that's okay. I'll hit her up from the stairs and get out of there because, I know what's good for me and I got a plan. And so I go to just hand her the envelope and like hit her up with a quick half-assed apology. And she says, no, come in the house. And she comes in, a little Irish Spitfire lady, and she hooks my arm and she pulls me into the house. And I'm like, oh my God, who's sitting on the couch laying there watching a Knicks game? Her mountainous Irishman of a husband. You ever meet a mountainous Irishman? One of those 6'5" monstrous Irishmen. And I felt like a little paper. Hi, Mister. He's like, hey, what's up, Richard? And so now I'm like, oh my God. It occurs to me that the two people I lied to and stole from with this ridiculous amends are standing right in front of me. And I wish that's where it ended, but Mrs. D said, Tommy, Jimmy, Richie Hession, the paper boy's here. And I'm going, no. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, Tommy comes in from the kitchen, and Jimmy comes, and he's a kid from our neighborhood. He's kind of a stoner. And he comes downstairs, and he's standing at the banister. And I knew him from the neighborhood. And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, hey, what's up, Jim? And now the whole family's looking at me, and she's like, so what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh my God, what do you say, right? Like, what do you say to something like that? But again, I'm an addict, and they told me I have to get through this kind of stuff, and I thought this was nonsense. And so I don't know what to say. Now I'm full of fear, and everyone's staring at me, and so I just looked at my feet and did what the people in the rooms taught me, and I said, you may or may not know this one of my 12-step recovery program for victory over alcoholism. One of the things we did is we make a list of people we harmed, and your name came up on the list, and I double collected, and I lied to you, and it was $4.50, and here's $20, and I'm really sorry. And I just kept looking at my feet. It's interesting, I hadn't looked at my feet, and now at this point I'm like sober for almost 2 years, and I look everybody in the eye now, right? Because I don't look at my feet anymore. Now I look you in the eye. And now I'm looking at my feet again, and this little lady came over to me. She took my chin and lifted me up so I would look her in the eyes, and she said, Richard, we knew that you lied to us all those years ago, my husband and I. She said, but we just figured maybe you and your family were going through a hard time and you needed the money. So every time I tell that story, it jerks me up because there are really people out there like that. She let me steal from her family because she thought me and my family were going through a rough time. Now, I can't tell you what happened to me in that ridiculous paperboy amends in that house that day, but I got lit up like a pinball machine. Whoom! I mean, it changed the literal course of my existence in that house from that amends that day. Completely changed everything about who I am. Since that day, 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago, I have not seriously wanted to drink or use drugs. And do you know why? Because I didn't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happened. That's the point of the story. We don't sell this kind of stuff here. That's not what we do. What we do and what our staff does is if we can get these kids inside, kids, I call everybody kids, you could be 50 and I'll call you a kid, but we get these kids inside here and we can create an idea and we can introduce them to concepts and tools and we can get them excited about the possibility of hope, that there is something beyond the life of addiction, and we can get them properly prepared while they're in the doors of this. Continuum of care is important. When you leave a detox, you're not cured. If you go away to a 30-day detox, you're not cured. If you come to our PHP and IOP, by the time you're done, you're not cured. But hopefully what we can do is create enough excitement, enough idea, a sense of purpose in you that maybe we can get you to the right aftercare. It's not the same for everybody. It looks different for all of us. But maybe we can create that in you and we can get you to the right aftercare so you can have your own experience, so you can have your own miracle. Because this, what happened to me, is nothing short of a miracle. I am a straight up and down addict from the moment I get out of bed till the moment I go to sleep. And my life has never been changed. It's never been the same. The change that I've gone through has been momentous. And it's because of people like the staff that we have here at BlueCrest.